So we're building on our basin opening well that we completed late last year, early this year, called Mukuyu 1, where we, the very first well in the basin, wildcat drilling, it doesn't get much more frontier than where we were. We encountered multiple light oil, gas, and helium-bearing reservoirs. Mukuyu 2, which is our follow-up well, will be spudding within the next couple of weeks, so a very exciting time at the company. We've got an action-packed couple of months ahead of us. We have also now extended our acreage area, and we've just acquired some additional 2D following the play with Mukuyu, as well as a new basin margin play that we've developed I'll talk about in a little while. We've got a dominant acreage position in the Cabora Bassa Basin in Zimbabwe, where we are, and we hold the rights to the prospective play fairway. And we've got multiple play types within our acreage area and an enormous portfolio of prospects and leads, which total over 5.5 billion barrels of oil equivalent, and hopefully some more to come now with that additional seismic data and maturing some additional drill-ready candidates. Invictus as a snapshot, we've got 3 licenses in Zimbabwe, Special Grant 4571 and EPOs 1848 and 1849. That is a 360,000 hectare position, just over 3,500 square kilometers. We've got multiple play types and drill-ready prospects. Mukuyu, which is the biggest one out of that portfolio, is 20 TCF and 845 million barrels of condensate, so an absolutely enormous prize. We established a working hydrocarbon system with our very first one in the basin, something that's a very rare feat and something that has set us on track now to drill out the rest of the basin. We've got an enormous amount of running room now that we've proven that the hydrocarbons are present in the basin. And Mukuyu 2, which will spud in the next couple of weeks, we're out to confirm a discovery in the Mukuyu prospect. We've got some data that's come back from Mukuyu 1. Unfortunately, we couldn't get our ultimate prize of getting a fluid sample and formally declaring a discovery. But with Mukuyu 2, we are more prepared for this next well. We've got calibration points in the basin. We've been able to design our well and our program around some hard data finally, now that there's a well that's being drilled. We've got an exciting play, the basin margin play that we call, which has got what's colloquially known in the region as a string of pearls play. So that's multiple prospects up against the basin bounding fault, which looks very similar to your typical East African rift system, successful in Uganda and Kenya, where multi-billion barrels have been discovered. In Zimbabwe, we've been able to progress very, very quickly from a frontier country where this has never been done before. We entered 4 years ago, and within that period, we've managed to drill 1 well, shoot 2 big infill seismic campaigns, and now drilling a second well, and that includes 18 months that was interrupted by COVID. So we move very quickly, we get after things, and we've had a conducive environment to do that. We've got a very experienced board and management team, both from an oil and gas perspective and also from a Zimbabwean business perspective, and that has been bolstered recently by the addition of our new chairman, John Bentley, who's a legend in the African oil scene. He's been involved with some of the most successful explorers and developers and producers, and built and sold multiple companies. Robin Sutherland, our new Ned, who's come on board, is one of the rainmakers at Tullow, who is responsible for some of the most notable discoveries in Africa, including the Jubilee field, as well as those multi-billion barrel discoveries in Kenya and Uganda. So he's been a fantastic addition to our team, and we've learned a lot and leveraged on his experience from those campaigns. Joe Matizwa, our deputy chairman, is one of the most prominent business identities in Zimbabwe and helps us navigate and get things done on the ground. And Barry Meikle, our country manager there as well, very experienced in the oil patch, having worked for Total and Interoil and PNG, a far more difficult environment than Zimbabwe. So we've got a very well-rounded team, and we've progressed this opportunity very quickly. Our acreage portfolio consists of those 3 permits, and in the middle you can see that big Mukuyu structure. So I beg your pardon. Mukuyu 1, which we drilled earlier this year, was on the southern flank of the structure, and we're going up more towards the Horst in Mukuyu 2 we planned. We've got a huge play fairway that we'll be exploring over the coming years. We've just shot some additional 2D seismic data in through this area, and we've got a bunch of drill-ready prospects in this basin margin play here, which already has 1.2 billion barrels of potential and highly repeatable on success. So what's exciting is that we've proven that hydrocarbons are present in the basin and in Mukuyu, and now this opens up the rest of the running room in our portfolio, and we control all the running room with our dominant position. Looking closer at Mukuyu 1 and the results, a very, very pleasing result for the very first one in the basin. This, as I said earlier, this doesn't often happen. We had our challenges, as you'd expect, going into a brand new basin that has never been drilled before and it's never been done before. So from the logistics aspect, from the geology aspect, we've learned a huge amount from Mukuyu 1, and we've applied all of that knowledge now to Mukuyu 2 in our planning. And through this well now, we understand the geology, how the rocks are going to behave, and manage to design our program around that. So as our pre-drill estimate came out last year, we have got the geology right, which is an amazing feat for a basin that hadn't been drilled before. And our primary target in the Upper Angwa will be coming back now to prove that up, as well as the prospectivity in the Pebbly Arcos and in the Upper Dandy as well. So Mukuyu 2, now that we've had some calibration in the basin from Mukuyu 1, we've refined our seismic interpretation and data and picked Mukuyu 2 in a little bit further to the north in a horse block. So we were, on reflection, relatively far down dip of the structure in Mukuyu 1. And so in Mukuyu 2, we're going to be roughly 450 meters up dip from Mukuyu 1, which on success allows us to prove up a pretty substantial resource. So the fact that we've got, we observed hydrocarbons all the way to the base of Mukuyu 1 throughout the Upper Angwa, so that really does open up a huge amount of potential for us. This location was also picked so that we can test the Lower Angwa in this location as well, which we couldn't reach with our previous wells. So a much simpler well design. It's only a 12-degree deviated well. We got pretty aggressive with Mukuyu 1 with a fairly inclined well that we were drilling so that we could test all of those facies and horizons. But now we've got a much easier well to drill on Mukuyu 2. So as we mentioned, we've got quite a reasonable step out from Mukuyu 1, roughly 7 kilometers away, which is pretty substantial, and 450 meters up dip. So we do have the ability to prove up a very large resource with this next well. We're going to be testing all of those horizons above the Upper Angwa and the Lower Angwa as well, and we've refined our drilling program and our well design that will enable us on success to suspend this well and then come back and test it next year. And beyond that, we'll be going into a pilot scheme and then getting after the appraisal of this field very aggressively with some 3D seismic and additional drilling. So this Mukuyu structure, I beg your pardon, absolutely enormous feature. It's 200 square kilometers under closure. So when we say it's one of the largest features going around on onshore Africa, there aren't many bigger things that you can go and find. And that is the advantage of opening up a brand new basin, is that typically you can get to these bigger ones first. Our new 2D seismic campaign has been completed on the eastern portion of our acreage in EPO 1848 and some into 1849. The reason that we've done that after the success in Mukuyu 1, I keep getting these buttons wrong. After the success in Mukuyu 1, we've seen a continuation of this play trend along this basement high, and see some very interesting amplitudes that we picked up on the legacy mobile 2D data when mobile explored here in the early 90s, where we've got some very nice responses. So this is one of the leads, Macabel, that we've already identified, and this is a roughly 10-kilometer feature that has a very nice amplitude response here and flattens out and conforms with the structure. So a number of these exist in this EPO area, and so we're looking at maturing those with some work that's going on the processing and interpretation, and having some additional drill-ready candidates that will be ready next year as part of a wider exploration and appraisal campaign. Onto the basin margin, which we haven't spoken about yet. This is the string of pearls play, and as I mentioned, we've got a number of these that form these structures up against the basin bounding fault through here, and you can see that we get these gentle little rollovers into the basin bounding fault, which forms these nice closures. So on success, if we open up this play as well with a well and success, it really does provide us with a huge amount of running room and repeatability across the license area, and that's again what's really exciting is the scale of what we have and the potential that it holds. Zimbabwe, as a jurisdiction to operate in, has provided us with a conducive environment, believe it or not. There have been some pro-business reforms that have been brought in, and as I mentioned, we've been able to mature our project and the company very, very quickly compared to a lot of jurisdictions. The government has put in the necessary reforms and the legislation that have enabled us to do it. Things like special economic zone status, which provide us with a host of fiscal and non-fiscal incentives, and also treat us almost as a quasi-independent state within the country. We're insulated from the local financial system, and it provides a range of benefits as well to our contractors as well that come into the country. We've already signed the Petroleum Exploration Development and Production Agreement, and we're just awaiting the finalization of the fiscal terms and the fiscal agreement that goes on top of that, which will allow us then to provide the country with its fair share of resources. At the moment, Zimbabwe has the best fiscal regime on the planet for oil and gas, but we're looking to do the right thing and provide the state with a fair share of the bounty. So, as I mentioned, we've been able to progress this very quickly. We've done it very systematically, putting in place all of the necessary technical, commercial, and above-ground foundations that we need to rapidly develop this project on success. We've got the legislation in place. We've got the commercial viability of this demonstrated through some gas sale MOUs that we've already signed with existing gas buyers in Zimbabwe. There's a hungry market. I'll go through that in a second. Technically, we've been able to get after this project very quickly, drilling a well and shooting 2 infill seismic campaigns within 4 years, and about to commence our Mukuyu 2 well. Next year, we're looking at a very aggressive program with some 3D seismic and exploration and appraisal drilling in Mukuyu and some of those other prospects, which will be drill ready and mature to go next year. Looking at the market, and really we're in an area that we have a huge energy crisis, both from an electricity and also a gas market crisis. A lot of you will be well aware of the electricity shortages in South Africa and what's known as load shedding, where the power is cut. That happens now on a virtual daily basis. 2022 was a record year of power cuts, and 2023, that graph is current to the 10th of May, so by now that's already been surpassed. So current supply shortfall of roughly 7,000 megawatts of power, equivalent to over 1 billion cubic feet per day of gas. The Southern Africa Power Pool, which Zimbabwe is connected to, allows us and provides us with a virtual gas pipeline through the electricity network to commercialize gas through that power network. And the spine of that grid runs through Zimbabwe. On a gas supply perspective, South Africa is also running short of gas. All of their gas comes from onshore Mozambique. Panda Tamane now is very mature and falling off plateau. 200 plus industrial customers will get cut off from 2026. So facing a gas supply deficit on top of the electricity deficit of 1 billion cubic feet per day by 2030. So again, a huge market for us. We've got an electricity network through the Southern Africa Power Pool. We've got gas pipelines. We've got small-scale LNG and rail and road that we can get gas to customers all over the region. It doesn't matter how much gas we discover, we'll be able to monetize every single molecule. So power generation, petrochemicals, fertilizer, industrial, mining houses, as well as liquid fuels, all of them are hungry and all of them are knocking on our door now looking for supply. And Chrissy is about to chase me off stage, so I'll just wrap up in saying we've got a huge and exciting period ahead of us. This will be a company-making couple of months, and very exciting that we get to carry on with Mukuyu 2 and looking at a very exciting period beyond that as well. And next year, hopefully, we'll be back talking about a successful Mukuyu 2 well and what comes next. So thank you.
Excellent.